welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria and today's video is going to be a reading vlog. So basically just going to bring you along with me through my reads this week, and both of them are actually part of series that I've already started, so kind of continuing, and one of them will be finishing series that I'm already in the middle of. So the first book that I'm reading is Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. Now this is the second book in the Dark Artifices series, and technically I think this is like the 11th book within the Shadowhunter world or something like that, so pretty far into the series. There is kind of a suggested reading order for this, and this is like the 4th trilogy I think that you're supposed to read in terms of the Shadowhunter world. So yeah, as I say, pretty far in with this one. But I read Lady of Midnight, which is the first book in this trilogy, earlier this month, so it's the last day of September today as I'm filming this, but basically earlier this month I read Lady of Midnight. Absolutely loved it. It was 5 stars for me, so I just want to try and continue the series on as soon as possible, so decided to pick up Lord of Shadows as part of my October TBR, so getting a bit of a head start in that TBR because it is rather ambitious and I want to try and read pretty much every book that is on that TBR, so trying to get a bit of a head start. So I'm already around 40% or 45% through this one and absolutely loving it. So if you don't know what the Shadowhunter world is, basically we're following these young people who are called Shadowhunters, and essentially it's their job to kind of protect the world from what they call downworlders. So that would include vampires, fairies, werewolves and all those type of things you're kind of used to within our fantasy worlds. So it's an urban fantasy, it's set kind of within our world, but some of the trilogies are set kind of in historical time periods. So the second trilogy is set around Victorian times, and I believe the last trilogy, which is the next one after this one, is set in like the early 1920s or something like that. So yeah, some of them do have a bit more of a historical feel, but the Mortal Instruments and this trilogy, the Dark Artifices, are more contemporary, more kind of akin to an urban fantasy that we would read, so definitely feel more like that urban fantasy than some of the other trilogies as part of this. But yeah, basically we're following these shadow hunters. It's their job to kind of protect the world from these downworlders, and it's just a really rich kind of world that Cassandra Clare has built. They don't really mix with what they call mundane, so normal human beings. They're kind of separated from the world. There is another kind of alternate world that they kind of hail from, and there's just so much within this series that I've really enjoyed. So as I say, the rich world building, but also the relationships. I think Cassandra Clare is known for her kind of love triangles, and within this series particularly it's forbidden love, so there's not quite a triangle there is with some of the side characters, but with the main kind of love interest here it is more of a forbidden love aspect. And if there's one thing Cassandra Clare can do, it's building that tension, that angst, and kind of the will they won't they within it. And it is YA, so there isn't any spice in here or anything like that, but just that tension and the emotions that are with it, it's yeah, it gets me every time, because as I say, this is like book 11, and you would think with a series like this, you know, it kind of sometimes would maybe feel as if it's kind of copy and paste and the series would get a little bit stale because you're maybe following a similar formula for the books, but somehow she keeps it fresh, somehow she keeps me wanting to read and really invested with the characters, even though as I said is a similar formula. I'm still really intrigued, still really hesitant to put the book down, and I would just want to continue reading. I think one thing I will say about these books is there's really long chapters. Some of the chapters are extremely long, but I'm actually listening to the audiobook for this one and it's being narrated by James Marsden. So if you're a millennial like me and if you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you probably know who that is, but I will put his picture up. But he is narrating this one and he's doing a great job. I'm actually really enjoying it. So yeah, as I say, around 45% into this one, loving it so far, loving the characters, loving the relationships. So probably give you an update on this one when I'm done, because there's probably not too much I can tell you in terms of the plot, because as I say, it's like book 11 within this series. So yeah, I'll probably give you a bit of an update on this one once I'm done. Then the next one is the last in a series, so it's a highly anticipated release for me, and it's Goldfinch by Raven Kennedy. So this one is part of the Plated Prisoner series. It starts with Guild, and if you haven't heard of this series, it's essentially starts out as a bit of a Midas retelling, so King Midas retelling. It's definitely romanticy. It kind of has a bit of a darker theme to it. We have fae, we have hidden identities, magical powers, and all of the good stuff that we like in a good romanticy. And I would say with this one, when I read the first book, Guild, so it basically follows our main protagonist Oren, who is what's called a concubine for King Midas, so basically one of his ladies essentially, and she's the favourite of King Midas. So she's sheathed in gold, she's fully gold, she shimmers, and a lot of people think, you know, that's because of Midas's touch and because she is the favourite. And in the first book we do follow a lot of Oren's story, and it's almost like a prequel, so I would say if you read the first book and you're not really vibing with it, definitely give it a chance, because the first book I think I rated like 3 stars or something like that when I first read it, but at the time it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I decided to continue with the series, and I'm really happy that I did, because I've really loved it. I love the story in here. I love how much is expanded from that first and second book and how much world building and character development that we've got in this as well. And I would say that book 4 and 5 have both kind of felt a little bit like filler books. So I'm excited to see how much plot progression we get in this, because in the last 2 books there's been a lot of character development and it's great to see that, but when it's kind of been 2 books, you're looking for the action, you really want to see what's going to happen. So the way that Gold, which was the 5th book, ended was on a big cliffhanger, and I'm really highly anticipating this one, seeing where the story goes. So I haven't started this yet, hopefully going to start it a little bit this evening. So as soon as I'm a little bit in, maybe 15 or 20% in, I'll give you an update on how this one's going. So yeah, these are the 2 books I'm going to be reading for this vlog. I may be able to squeeze in another one depending on how my reading goes this week. I am just back at work after being off on holiday, so maybe a little bit busier than usual, just trying to catch up on that. But if I can't squeeze anything else in, I'll definitely let you know. But definitely be finishing these 2 this week and letting you know all my thoughts and feelings as I go along. Lovelies, just jumping on because I do have some reading updates since the other day. So first up is The Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare, and I've actually finished this one. I did finish this morning, and I'm giving this one 5 stars. I gave Lady of Midnight, which is the first book in this series, 5 stars, and this one was exactly the same. I'd say there was a little bit of slowness in the middle of this one, but it just did not take away from my entertainment with this one. I think I've said it before, with Cassandra Clare, she is the queen of the forbidden love, the yearning, the love triangle. She just writes it so well. Those are all things that aren't necessarily my favourite tropes. Certainly the love triangle, it's usually not something I enjoy. Sometimes the way it's written, there's always like a very evident winner within that love triangle, and it just doesn't read true to me sometimes. But the way that she writes it, you're always kind of unsure on who the love interest is going to end up being, who they're going to stick with, and I just love that about the writing. It's really, really good. And yeah, with this one, I'm just loving the characters. I love the story. I love the plot. I love her writing, and the way that this ended makes me want to jump into the 3rd book straight away. It ended on such a cliffhanger, and absolutely can't wait to pick that one up. I'm not going to pick it up next because it isn't on my October TBR. Trying to be good and trying not to veer off that too much since it's only the 2nd of October. But yeah, really, really loved this. Absolutely 5 stars. If you haven't read any of the Shadowhunter series yet, I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely one that I've really enjoyed. It's taken me a while to get through. There's quite a lot of books. As I say, I think this is like book 11 or something like that in the list, but it's definitely been worth it. And so far, I just really, really enjoyed it. In terms of Goldfinch by Raven Kennedy, I'm about 25% of the way through this so far, and I'd say a lot of what we've got so far is just kind of recapping what happened in the last book, recapping where we are with the characters, some of the characters kind of planning their next move and planning how they're going to resolve some of the issues that we've seen in the last book. But where I am at the moment, we have a couple of characters who have never interacted, kind of interacting, and that's been quite an interesting dynamic. So I'll be interested to see where that goes. But yeah, I'm only around 25% into this one, so not too much into the story, but continuing to love the characters, continuing to love Raven Kennedy's writing. So not too much to update on this one, but still really enjoying it, and I'll give you a quick update on this one once I've read a bit more. But because I did finish Lord of Shadows, I've actually picked up The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. So this one is on my October TBR. It's a witchy book, so it's perfect for this time of year. But this one, I didn't know too much about it before picking it up. I had read from Alex E. Harrow before, so I've read Starling House. Now that one, I really loved the writing, but for some reason just the story and the plot didn't really hit for me. It just wasn't something that gripped me. me within the story, but I absolutely adored her writing. I really loved her writing style and her prose, so I wanted to try and pick up something else from her to see if the story would hit a little bit better for me and see if there's a book out there that she's written that I could relate to a little bit more. So decided to pick this one up this month because, as I said, it's the perfect time to read it. Now this one, it kind of follows three sisters, so they've previously had quite a fractured relationship. I believe they had quite an abusive upbringing, and there's a bit of a fractured relationship there at the very start of this book. So when the book starts, we're kind of following the three sisters on their separate paths, and at very early within the story they kind of come together again, and you can kind of see that fractured relationship, and you can see how they're interacting with each other, that there is a lot of trauma there that they're probably going to have to deal with. Now part of the synopsis for this is saying that obviously witches don't exist, there haven't been witches in quite some time, but very early in the book you do understand that these sisters do have some magical powers or some kind of semblance of witch history within their family. So I'd imagine a big part of the story will be them trying to concede that and probably trying to stay safe in the knowledge that they do have this magical powers, and it wouldn't be safe to kind of display any of those or to be found out to be displaying those within this time period, because I believe it starts in 1893 and it's around the time of the suffragettes. So again, a lot of the story is kind of centering around those suffragettes and one of the sisters wanting to be part of that movement. And I'd imagine that the story is going to continue to be quite a feminist story, quite a empowering story about female rights and rage and kind of females taking control of their survival. And yeah, I think so far the writing has been really lovely. I'm only on chapter 6, so I'm not too far in at all. That's just kind of what I've gathered from that. So in terms of the story and the plot, I'm not too sure how it's going to go, but so far really enjoying the writing, really enjoying kind of the atmosphere that she's building here. It's set in Salem, so it's got that perfect kind of dark, witchy, eerie vibe so far. So yeah, be really intrigued to see where this goes. And as I say, I think the writing is really beautiful, so hopefully the story is going to be one that resonates with me. And one thing that I did notice is that Laini Taylor, who is one of my absolute favourite authors, has given a little blurb on here saying, a gorgeous and thrilling paean to the ferocious power of women. The characters live, bleed and roar. So yeah, if Laini Taylor says it's good, it's good. I'm gonna go for it. So yeah, definitely interested to see where this goes. So once I've read a bit more of this and have a bit more of an update on how the plotting's going, how the story's going, I'll let you know. Hey all, so just jumping on to give you a quick update on my reading. So I was reading The Once and Future Witches by Alexi Harrow, and I managed to get about 50% into this one, and I think I'm going to soft DNF it for now. I'm really bad at DNFing books, but the reason I'm kind of thinking of soft DNFing it is because it's a similar problem I had with another book I read by her, Sterling House, where really love the concept, really love the idea, really love the prose that she used. So her writing is absolutely beautiful. I really love it. There's a lot of passages here. If I was annotating, I probably would have highlighted. The atmosphere that she's building and kind of the town that she's building is all, you know, ticking all the boxes that I would love in a book normally, but something about it just isn't gripping me, and I feel like it's the characters. And again, it was the same thing with Sterling House. I just didn't feel a connection with the characters at all, so I'm finding myself not really caring about things that are going to happen or their stories or, you know, their relationships with each other and other people. So it's just making me feel like it's a bit of a slog to try and read it. So essentially the story is following these three sisters who have had a very fractured relationship. They're meeting up for the first time in 7 years, and the story kind of centers around this witch kind of suffragist group and women's power, and there's definitely an air of that feminist kind of resurgent for this time. So I think again the concept just sounded like it was going to be really exciting and fast paced, but for me the pacing has just been a little bit off, and I don't know if it's because we're jumping from each sister's point of view too much, or each time you kind of get to know one of the sisters, or each time you're in their point of view you're kind of getting used to how they're feeling and how they are positioned, and then you're jumping to another character and the pacing is quite off for me. Yeah, I can't really articulate what it is about it that was just not hitting for me. I just knew that up until the halfway point it was sitting at around that 3-star mark. It was giving me the same kind of vibes as Sterling House, so even though I was really loving the writing, I didn't really care for the characters, I didn't really care for the plot. I felt like it was a bit of a slog to pick it up. I wasn't excited to pick it up, so I have a huge TBR for October. So for the minute I am going to soft DNF this one, see how I feel in a week or two. If I want to pick it up again, see how the story goes, I can. I do have the audiobook, so I could just listen to it when I'm doing chores or something, something like that. But for now, it's just one that I'm not excited to pick up. So I thought it would be best to maybe try and move on to something else in my TBR to see if maybe I'm in a reading slump or if it's, you know, right book, wrong time, something like that. But yeah, for now, unfortunately, this one is going to be a bit of a soft DNF. So because of that, I did need to have an audiobook to kind of listen to while I'm reading Goldfinch. So Goldfinch I'm reading physically, so I'll give you a bit of an update on that one in a minute. But I did decide to pick up this one, so My Throat, An Open Grave by Tori Bovalino, I believe that's pronounced. So it's a really short one. It's probably around the same amount of pages as I had left in the Once and Future Witches, so I thought this would be a good one to pick up. I should be able to get it read in time, and this one was a complete cover buy for me when I seen it. So I'd never heard anybody talking about it, or I'd never really heard of this author before either, and as soon as I seen the cover it intrigued me, and when I read the back I was solidified it was one that I really wanted to pick up. So it kind of gives me the Labyrinth vibes. Basically this is a little town, small town in the US where there's always been stories and folklore about this Lord of the Wood who basically comes to the town, takes babies from the town, and you kind of have to go and bargain with him to get the child back. And as soon as I read that, it was compared to The Labyrinth. That's one of my favourite movies of all time, so I definitely wanted to pick this one up, and I have actually got a good bit into it. I have the audiobook off Everon, so I've managed to get a good way through it. I think I'm probably around 40% into this already. As I said, it's quite a short one, so it shouldn't take me too long to get through, but I am really enjoying this. I do think it's been a little bit predictable up to now. I have liked the writing, I'm liking the build up, I'm liking the intrigue. It's been a little bit predictable. I'm not sure if this is YA or if it's adult, I'll double check that, but it's been a tiny little bit predictable. But I think it's the type of book I need right now, just something that's not too intense, not too fantasy led. I am reading another fantasy book, so I'm trying to keep it a little bit more simplistic, but it's giving me really good autumn vibes, so I think this is the perfect time of year to read a book like this. But yeah, as I say, I'm around halfway through, and it's basically following our main character Leah, who is a young girl living in this small town, and essentially her little brother is taken by the Lord of the Wood, and she is sent to try and get her baby brother back, and it's really just following her journey doing that. And it is kind of delving into mental health and abuse and things like that, so maybe check up some trigger warnings on this one, because there has been some mention of ideation of suicide and things like that. So yeah, definitely check up trigger warnings on this one. But so far it has given me quite eerie, kind of creepy vibes. It's not quite horror or anything like that, but it's definitely given me the creepy eerie vibes that I like to read around this time of year. So yeah, so far so good. Definitely enjoying it. I think it'll be a quick read, so I'll let you know once I finish this one. And then for Goldfinch, I'm around 50% into this one now, so the plot is really picking up. I will say the first kind of 30% was going a little bit slow. We were kind of recapping on where we were from the previous book. The plot wasn't really pushing forward too much. It was just kind of recentering us in that plot, recentering us with the characters, and it did feel a little bit slow for me. However, it has really picked up now. Certain things have happened which are kind of spoilery, so I can't really say, but it's basically meant that the plot is pushing forward, and I hope that after this point the plot will push forward a lot more, and it will be a bit faster paced as well. So at the minute it's not quite sitting at a 5-star for me. I think the last book was 5-star, but this is the final, so it's always hard to tell with a finale in a series if it's going to be a 5-star, is it going to be disappointing? But so far I am really enjoying it. It's definitely sitting in around that 4-star realm, so yeah, I'll probably give you an update on this one once I've read a bit more. I'm probably near to the end of this one. So yeah, hoping to be able to finish these kind of by tomorrow, maybe Sunday. It's Friday today, so I should have a bit more time reading. I haven't had as much time to read this week back at work because I was off on vacation last week, so was definitely catching up this week, and the pace was a little bit busier than I usually am. But hoping to be able to finish these by the end of the weekend, because yeah, I don't have too far to go in Goldfinch, and this is a pretty short book. I could probably finish this tonight, to be quite honest, but depending on how much time I have to read. But as I say, as soon as I have any more updates for these two, I'll jump back on and let you know. just jumping on to give you my final thoughts and kind of do a bit of a wrap up for this vlog. So I have now finished both My Throat and Open Grave and Goldfinch. So I'll start with the first one, My Throat and Open Grave. As expected, this was a really quick read. It was really atmospheric. It was really perfect for this time of year. A great read for around this spooky season. On the face of it, this is really just a YA romance. You know, there's a lot of those kind of cliches in here that we find in a lot of young adult romantasy, and it didn't take away from my enjoyment or anything, but just to kind of give the expectations, I know this is compared to The Labyrinth quite a lot, but other than that kind of initial premise where her baby brother is taken away, there's none of the vibes that you get here from The Labyrinth. There's nothing really here to say that it's similar in vibes. It's more so just that initial premise. So just to kind of warn you, if there's anyone who really loves The Labyrinth that thinks they're going to get that kind of story with this, it's not quite a true representation for the story, but this is still a really great story. It's just those expectations might set you in the wrong direction if that's what you're thinking you're getting, because yeah, this really is more of a romantasy novel and the main comparison is just that initial premise. But yeah, I think overall I really enjoyed this. I think that the main aspect of this that really made it stand out was the inclusion of discussions about religious oppression and how that can affect people in a community and how it can impact the lives of the people in that community. But I did like that even though it was talking about religious oppression, it wasn't talking about religion being inherently bad or anything like that, because I'm not a religious person myself, but I do think there's a fair way to assess those type of groups and those type of people without kind of saying that religion in itself is bad, you know, because personally I don't think it is. While I'm not religious myself, I can't see merit in it. So I did like that that message was in there without it being kind of a religion is bad message in there. I also think the discussion around kind of self-depreciation, you know, feeling your worth and the ideas around suicide and how that can come into someone's head and how they can be feeling that way, I do think that was explored quite well in here, and it was a journey we went on with the main character kind of starting at a point where she may have had ideas of suicide and how she kind of worked through that and got to the end where she could see a positive life ahead of her. She could see a positive life going forward. And yeah, the exploration of some of those topics were really, really well done. Even though it is quite a short book, I do think that they were explored quite well. And yeah, as I say, it's mainly a romantasy. That is kind of the main story and plot that you're going to get in here, but there was kind of deeper levels of exploration in some of those topics. So yeah, ended up giving this one 4 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. And then for Goldfinch, I actually ended up giving this 4 stars as well. And I'm not disappointed because 4 stars is still really good, but I was expecting this to kind of be a 5 star. I thought the ending would be a bit more impactful for me. I mean, in saying that, there was quite a few things in here that I really loved. Obviously, Raven Kennedy's writing is beautiful. I really, really love it. Love the series so far. Love this book as well. But for me, this book kind of felt like she didn't know how to end some of the stories. I think Oren's story, certainly, so the main character, ends in this book. I think we can kind of see where her journey will take her now, but for the rest of the characters, it was kind of left a little bit open, and I'm wondering, is that intentional? Is there going to be some spin-offs for certain characters? I mean, I hope so. I would really like to follow the character that I'm thinking of. I would really like to follow their story going on, so I'm really hoping there is going to be some sort of spin-off with their story and to see where they go after this. And there was kind of breadcrumbs of certain things that might happen going forward, so without spoilers I can't really say, but I'm hoping that's the reason that it was left a little bit open-ended. There was quite a few scenes in here that definitely brought a tear to my eye. They made me really feel. She managed to make a character who I absolutely hated at the start be one of my most beloved characters at the end, and if anyone's read it, all I'm going to say is the scene on the bridge. Yeah, that really got to me. It actually really, really got to me. So yeah, really good book, really solid book, really great writing. I love all the characters. I love the story. I do think that she took things in a slightly unexpected way at some parts, but I didn't feel as satisfied at the end as I would have liked to. And as I say, there's a few things that I think have been left open. I'm hoping it's intentional, but if it's not, then it will kind of solidify my feelings for this one. But yeah, as I say, 4 stars, still a really good rating. It's still one that I'd recommend to anyone. I'd recommend the whole series to anyone. So yeah, not disappointed. That would be the wrong word to say, but it wasn't quite the 5 star that I was expecting. So yeah, these are technically the 3.5 books that I read this week, and I think even though we did have 1 DNF, I mean, I had 2 4 stars and 1 5 star. I think that's a pretty good reading week by my standards, so definitely not disappointed with that result. Let me know if you've read any of them, what your thoughts and feelings were, or if you have any recommendations based on what you think I would like from reading these. I always want to hear new recommendations for my TBR, so if you do have any, just put them down in the comments below. If you like this video, do remember to give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, remember to subscribe. I'm posting 2 videos per week, and there'll be videos like this, so reading vlogs, wrap-ups, come shopping with me, book hauls, all good bookish things like that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye!